I think we're live, right?
Now we're live.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning to all the LaForans. This is Tanya Friedman calling in from a beautiful New York City this morning. And I wanted to welcome everybody today. We have our esteemed panel of lawyers who are going to be answering your immigration questions. Just a quick introduction. As I said, my name is Tanya Friedman. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Kinetics. We are a recruitment company. We specialize in the direct hire of nurses all over the US, hospitals, nursing homes, surgery centers, etc. And on the panel, we have Carl Schusterman, Chris Musello, and Jacob Sapachnik. Usually when we do our Facebook Live sessions, we do it on a Friday. So this is a surprise for everybody. It's not Friday today, but we are doing this Facebook Live session because we have had a lot of people who are asking questions about the latest legislation that's in Congress. And we wanted to make sure to answer your questions because we know that a lot of people are worried about this. There has been some talk, obviously, about the retrogression, and I think we did address that in the last session that we had with our esteemed panel. But today, the purpose is not going to be taking questions from the LaForans. Today, the purpose is just to talk about the legislation and just to share as much information with everybody. Obviously, we know that people are worried. There's been a lot of talk about new legislation in the news, and retrogression and what happened the last time is fresh on everybody's minds. So we want to make sure that we give accurate information so that we all know what we're talking about. Before we start, I just wanted to give a quick shout out again to the LaFora team. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. The purpose here is really to counteract any rumors and false information and to make sure everybody has accurate access to information that is right on topic. So to get started, we're going to talk about three different pieces of legislation that are currently in the news. We're going to be talking about the Fairness of High-Skilled Immigration Act, which is known also as HR 1044. We're going to be talking about S386 Amendment, and we're also going to be talking about the Believe Act. So, Carl, if I can start with you, if you want to just share with everybody what HR 1044 is all about. I know we did speak about it on one of the previous calls, but if you want to share with everybody what that's all about.
Sure. 1044 is a legislation to remove the per country caps on people that are immigrating to the United States through their employment. We have sort of a broken system in the U.S. People who get different visas like the TN or the H-1B, they could all be from one country. I mean, there's no particular caps on temporary working visas. But when their employers want to apply for them to get green cards, the rules for the last 50-something years say that no more than 7% of the total amount of people can be from one country. Well, over the last 10 to 20 years, most of the H-1Bs have been people from India, mostly in the IT industry. So because of the 7% cap, when they try to go from H-1B to green cards, the waiting times have mushroomed like crazy. Only about 5,000 can get green cards every year. The backlog has grown to almost 500,000. So if you look at it that way, it could be a 100-year wait to get a green card, which makes no sense at all. And Congress, for the last 10 years, has tried to get a bill through to get rid of those per country caps so the Indians and everybody else can be treated equally. The problem is they didn't pass this until last week, which was, or 2 weeks ago on the July the 10th, it passed overwhelmingly through the House of Representatives. And now it's too late, in my opinion, to just have a bill that gets rid of the per country caps because you have so many people waiting in line. that what it means is that almost no one except Indians would be able to get green cards for the next few years through employment if they took away the per country caps. Nurses from the Philippines, it would probably take 10 years for a nurse to get a green card. And not only is that unfair to nurses, but it's really not smart politics, because our country has this huge shortage of nurses. There's no real temporary visas for most nurses. So if hospitals are going to wait 10 years to get in a nurse, they're going to stop applying. So even though H.R. 1044 passed overwhelmingly in the House, its companion bill, S386 in the Senate, was stopped by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. And we're going to talk about the act that he introduced, which is called the Believe Act. But basically, you need a two-part bill to really make this work. One is to wipe out the per country quotas, which H.R. 1044 did, but the other is to increase the total amount of people that can immigrate through employment. And if you do that, it works. We'll talk about, what kind of, I think Chris will talk about what kind of chance Senator Paul's Believe Act has in the U.S. Senate, but H.R. 44 has been effectively, the counterpart in the Senate has been effectively blocked.
Yeah, so as Carl said, the 386 bill, which is the Senate bill, has been blocked. And we do not think that that bill is going to go forward in the short term, in the next month or two. But come the fall, I think we're all in agreement that there are folks in the Senate who are going to try and move that bill. So that's the bad news. The good news is Senator Paul seems to be very firm, and he has introduced another piece of legislation called the Believe Act, as Carl said. And the Believe Act would be a terrific piece of legislation because it takes the entire Fairness Act that is out there, which is the one that will really help the Indian community, and then layers on protections for nurses along with several other employment-based immigration groups. So that's the bill that certainly is the better of the two bills. But the Believe Act has only been out there for about 2 or 3 weeks, and so it's just now starting to work its way through the Congress. But my sense is that that there may be able to be some sort of a compromise, maybe midway between those two bills. But what we think is important for the Philippine nursing community right now to recognize is a few things. One, while these bills are out there, they are not law, and there are still several hoops that would need to clear before they would become law. Among other things, Senator Paul would have to be convinced to release his hold. That would be one thing. A second hurdle that needs to be overcome is even if Senator Paul released his hold, the current version, the Senate Bill 386 and the House Bill 1044, are not actually the exact same bill. There's the Senate bill contains some H-1B changes that the House bill does not contain. And so since those bills are similar but not identical, they actually would have to be another negotiation even if Mr. Paul released his hold in order to create compromise law. I don't want to get too far into the details other than to, again, make sure everybody's aware that there would have to be several steps beforehand. And then the largest step might be this. Some of this is a major rewrite of the way green cards are issued in the United States. And there's no guarantee that the president or other folks would be willing to pass an immigration bill on the employment side without dealing with some of the other perceived gaps in U.S. immigration policy. So for that reason, we don't think anyone needs to be panicked. today. We will obviously be keeping everybody informed over the next few weeks and months. And I think the most important thing that a Philippine community can do is if they have relationships with hospitals, perhaps you have friends and family who are in the United States with hospitals who believe that this issue is important, that the nurses are protected in any sort of bill. If they can get in touch with Carl or myself or Tanya or Jacob, we have some sample letters that hospitals can write to the U.S. senators to inform them that they think that the fairness bill has a lot positive for it, but it does need to be fixed in this one area to protect the nurses. And the legislation is out there. It's already been written. It's really just a question of trying to create some sort of a compromise provision.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you see me okay? Because I'm getting some messages that I can't. You don't see.
Yeah, you're pixelated. Carl looks very clear, and then we know Jacob is in Europe and he was having problems. But Tanya, you're
yeah, we're coming in and out.
Yeah.
Coming in.
Oh,
But,
goodness. Well, hopefully
Chris,
you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yes,
Chris,
I'm so sorry. I'm actually not in my office, so maybe that's why I'm having some connection problems. But if you can hear me okay. So I think the clear message for everybody listening is not to panic. And I think, you know, as was mentioned.
Yeah, Tanya, you've cut out. Jacob, I think you wanted to say something. Maybe you can.
Yeah. I wanted to mention something, Chris, that with the Believe Act, they're also going to be raising the cap on employment, and which is something we've been waiting for a long time. And I think, was it the going from 140 to 270,000, something like that we've been waiting for. And I think this is something that, and of course, and adding the nurses as well. But for us, getting the numbers up has been a major, hope, because I think, Carl, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think since the early 90s, there hasn't been increased, right?
Right. I mean, I guess I've been around so long that I can remember, but it was like 52,000.
That's not what I asked you.
Jesus. Yeah, exactly. And then under a Republican president, George Bush, in the 1990s, they almost tripled it. It went from 50.
Right.
What Rand Paul is suggesting, the 270, is not quite doubling it. But I don't know. I'm not, I don't claim to be a congressional expert, but the President Trump did make his speech about a month before this 1044 passed in the House. And he said, I think that not 12%, which is the amount of immigration that's employment related, quite a leap. But he didn't add new numbers. So basically, they would get rid of the diversity visa or the visa lottery, and they would take some of the family categories away.
We are, I don't know, I'm having problems hearing Carl as well. I don't know if people can hear me, but.
Carl, can you say something?
Yeah, so I can hear you fine, Chris. I don't. But I think that the logical compromise will be that there'll probably be some reductions in the lottery and family categories to make up for the increases in the employment category. But since some professions, particularly registered nurses and physical therapists, have been designated as shortage occupations, I think that most everybody can get together to agree that we shouldn't shut them out of the employment-based immigration.
I think we lost Tanya for a second. I'm trying.
Yeah,
Tanya,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear her. Yeah,
okay.
It's a little bit. I think the bandwidth here is a little bit weak, and okay. So. But it's we're doing our best.
So can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So I think that the information that the panel has shared has been very helpful. The main message, I believe, coming across, and I'm so sorry, I seem to be having some connection issues this morning, but I think the main message for everybody listening is not to panic. We will keep you informed as this evolves, and availability for, for green cards, and we will keep you posted.
All right.
Okay. I'm so sorry for the connection problems. I hope everybody got our main message, and we will keep you posted.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you,
And
everybody,
next
and
thing we'll do
thanks
it from the
again to the
US.
Lafora team. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy the beach.
Thanks, Carl. I will be back next week, and I'll let you know next time I'm going to be up there, because you're in Orange County every other week, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Uh-huh.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Enjoy. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.